So Cole Harbour has a around 5 hectare almost park added in the middle of it, right in downtown Vancouver. Falls Creek North, a series of open spaces, parks, and so forth. And it has been incredibly successful. They won all sorts of awards for that development, and justifiably so. There's 2 ways to do it. You either have a single applicant, or you have council, the municipality, that has created a visionary plan and let people know what has to be accomplished within that plan. Unfortunately, at this time we have neither. We don't have a single applicant, and we certainly haven't done the visionary planning to say, this is how we're going to make this a really attractive, livable nature center. The first thing that came forward was Mr. Gardner. To his great credit, Mr. Gardner undertook the risk of assembling enough land to do a pretty substantial development on there. And I'm very thankful to Mr. Gardner. He also asked me to meet with him on the property fairly early, and he did. And I explained to him the concept, and I think he was somewhat aware anyhow, of the huge advantage of creating a public open space, green space that ran right down the middle of this area, including all the way through to University Heights and perhaps beyond. Mr. Gardner, again to his credit, managed to create an open space in the middle of this development, and it actually makes some of that public land out there, both a small park and the park pathway that goes through. That, by intent, was the first step and first stage in creating that amenity package that this area will desperately need. The concern I have with the current development, and it's not the fault of the developer, he's designed a good development and done his very best, it's way too small for him to offer much in the way of amenity. Can't happen. It would be absurd to ask him to provide yay much open space and yay much park. If we go down this road of these small, isolated one-offs as a way of constructing these major centers, we will fail miserably. There's no question. We will not get to where we need to go. This one, if we manage, what happens if the 3 or 4 houses come to the south, a little bit bigger, still not anywhere close, probably to what we need, unless we as a municipality want to invest in buying the public space, and that's a very difficult thing to sell to the taxpayers. So I'm really regret it, but I'm not going to be able to support this because it is indicative of the failure to make sure that we're going in the right direction in order to accomplish these major centers in the way we do. And I apologize to the applicant for that. It isn't his fault, not at all. It's our fault in that respect. But and not this council, but collectively in the past. And so I need to do something to say, we have to change the way we're going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to support this application. I think it is very harmonious with the neighboring project, which is no surprise. And I think this fits in very well. All the positive things that have been said before about it, I don't need to repeat here. I will admit that having sort of allowed the presentation to go through so quickly and didn't sort of lend itself to a to and fro with the developer, I did not jump out to comment on the bus pass issue, which I had raised at the time of the Committee of the Whole, and I see there is some definition here. Everyone around this table who has heard me over time will know that I would implore that this money be held in trust, but not for purchase of bicycles and scooters and so on, but to be kept to support public transit. I have every belief that if monies are allowed to be tapped in for people to buy bikes and so on, that within the month you'll see them on Used Victoria, and they'll just won't contribute in any way, shape or form to the mobility. So my plea to the proponent would be when you're dealing with your legal counsel and setting up your trust, that you make the options very pointed and make them directed, if at all possible, to the enhancement of the use of public transit. It is the only way we can be certain that that amenity, which the developer has offered up, truly in some small way seeps into changing the behaviors that the whole the notion is supposed to do. So, as I say, I would have engaged in that discussion earlier in the discussion here if the presentation had taken the usual turn of presentations tonight. The brevity caught me short, so I just have to go on record as saying, please, please, please do not allow those funds to be used just to sort of turn over and be a quick grab for someone and to have no lasting impact. But glad to support the proposal. I think it's great.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gaines, are you ready?
Through the chair, I think this is a very nice proposal. I understand the comments of my colleague that wouldn't it be nice to have a city-wide plan? Wouldn't it be nice to have a massive block plan? Wouldn't it be nice to plan the whole of Shelburne Valley in one go? Well, what can Saanich do then to bring in these massive developments? We could work at that, and I hope to work at that. But meanwhile, we have people bringing forward, such as we see here, what I think is a fabulous development. And they demonstrated that they listened to the members that were talking about plants, and they put hose box bibs on the apartments. They listened to the need for trees and to protect that, and to do more to protect that. They listened to the permeable surface says, and they brought them all back. So I'm actually a little bit dismayed to hear that they should be punished because we can't bring in the larger blocks. But I understand the sentiment, and I respect that yes, it's unfortunate that we have not some of those aspects to our development. Maybe those are things we can work on. I will be supporting this wholeheartedly and enthusiastically because this is a development partner and this group of partners that Saanich, that they've done work in Saanich and they've shown that they bring some first-rate developments forward, and this continues that legacy. I'd like to talk to the point about bus passes, and it's a very interesting thing about a multimodal transit community, and that's what we are. And I had talked to several people who've put in developments and given bus passes, and they have not necessarily found the bus passes were always used. So the way I interpreted that, and I did actually raise it at this last presentation, that they might consider, instead of just bus passes, given the opportunity for scooters, given the opportunity for bicycles. It is perhaps a view of society that maybe they would take that, buy the bike, and put it on Craigslist. It's possible. They could sell their bus pass. They could do the same with the bus pass. So I understand what my colleague's saying, but I actually think there's a benefit to a multimodal opportunity. And my experience in talking to developers, particularly this past 7 months, is that bus passes doesn't necessarily achieve what we think they're doing. And since we have a bicycle master plan, since we believe in multimodal, I think this is a nice and elegant solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the spirit of brevity that Councillor Bryce spoke of, I'll try to keep my comments short, or brief, as it were. I just want to acknowledge the Built Green Gold or Energuide 82 aspirations for the development, the heat pump, $7,500 for the Affordable Housing Fund. I'm particularly pleased, and I'll come back to the item on transportation. And I think one that I was quite pleased to read that was a new introduction was the $2,500 towards the Shelburne Community Kitchen, which of course is going to be, I think, a big boost for that group. which is going to help people get some nutritious meals in this area, and that's really and to cook for themselves, which I think is a terrific amenity. I just wanted to quickly sort of echo what Councillor Price had said with respect to the transportation amenity, or the $1,000 a unit. One of the things I might suggest is that you could do the bus passes and then create a pool of bikes and scooters, sort of like a bike share within the building, so that you avoid the issue of having them resold, but they still serve that purpose. So if the applicant, through their lawyer, wanted to look at creating a system like that, probably wouldn't work out too well with bus passes. That's something you want to keep in your wallet, but I think with bikes and scooters, it's something that could work out. Anyway, those are my comments. I'm pleased to see this moving forward, and I do think this is an appropriate form of development to occur in this area.
Great. Thank you. For last word, perhaps, Councillor Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will be supporting this. I think it's going to be a nice asset to the community, particularly next to the project that has already gone into place, which has turned out quite nicely. Talking about the bus passes, I like the idea of a bike share in that too. At least it gets people changing their habits and such, and not receiving a great opportunity for a cash grab. I hope that isn't the case that our society has come to that, but I certainly can hear what Councillor Price is saying. But I like that idea. I certainly appreciate the concept of putting some, areas in the gardens where people perhaps could have grow something edible. And I think that's a very nice opportunity for people living there, and I'm pleased to see that happening. There's a lot of holding properties in the Shelburne area, people that are holding many, many properties, and there's no way that, how do you drag these people out and say, okay, we're going to do the best development going, and we're going to do it now. Until a landowner is willing to do something like that, this is what we'll look at. We can have our master plans and such, but you have to get those people that want to go ahead with that, and perhaps they're quite happy renting away and making some money there. I do think this is at the right price. This is a place with lots of amenities. It's right next door to Canadian Tire. You've got Home Depot there, Tim Hortons. And, there's lots happening there. You can go right up the road to Tuscany, do your shopping. So I think this will be a great development. It's great for people too. That it's not everybody that wants to live in a big development. So this is an opportunity for a few people to be together and more appealing than others. I also reflect back, we've seen developers try to acquire properties and what happens there. And we think of two sites now, one that's going ahead, one that's trying to go ahead, and 10 years later, it hasn't come to fruition. So I'm pleased to support this. I'm pleased to see where it's going. I like the amenity package. The Shelburne Community Kitchen can certainly use that to help them with what they're doing. So I'm very pleased to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from Council? A few of my own comments. I think I'm just going to speak on the larger issue of how applicants come forward and how they meet the goals and the interests of individual councillors and council as a whole. When it comes to dealing with climate change or Blue Dot resolutions and things like that, I feel there's perhaps a fundamental disconnect that currently exists, and in a way we're blindfolded walking in the dark, in the sense that there's a rate of change that's going on now in the world that we're not addressing. And the number of applications that come to this council in a particular year, while we may be able to tweak them here and there, such as the number of houses we allow on a lot, or we're going to ask for solar panels on the roof, or we're going to make little tweaks to energy and things like that. Those changes are small, and they cumulatively add up, but they may not be addressing the greater rate of change that's occurring in the world. All applicants, all developers that come to this council need some kind of roadmap to begin their development on, and have some sense that they will be able to get to an end that will be improved. Certainly if they go far beyond our guidelines and our OCP and our planning processes, they're not going to get there. And when the community comes and speaks, and they have issues that haven't been addressed, simply because there hasn't been the conversation, then we might send them back and get them addressed as well. But in order to get through this process, developers need a sense that they will be able to take a step and continue forward on those steps as they make improvements. And when I look at the body of documentation that's here, and all the categories that are met, and all the approvals that are in here coming as recommendations from our staff, it's a little bit difficult for me at this stage to sort of reject it on a whole-scale basis, simply because we're not meeting the rate of change that's occurring in the world. And so I think as this council needs to consider how we're going to do that going forward, what kind of process, what kind of strategic initiative, what kind of climate change committee we can put together that we can start working on the next phase of this. Because our official community plan is from 2008. And larger awareness about climate change I don't think really existed before An Inconvenient Truth that Al Gore put out in 2006. So we are a little bit behind the times, and we have, I think, an opportunity to catch up if we get together and figure out a way to do this, bringing our staff and experts and our own interests to bear on this. But for me to turn down this proposal at this point, simply because we're not catching up, I don't think serves our community well, and I think it's unfair to developers. So with that, I have to lend my support and encourage the council will get together in some fashion to address this bigger issue, because it is an issue. Everybody understands it, but as a community, we need to be doing something about it that our community can participate in and we can contribute with. And if that means changing the way that we infill and do development, and we're making a difference because we think that we are altering the commuting patterns of people, or we're putting people in motorcycles or other things like that, we have to work on those kinds of things. And I can't reject this application simply because of, there's a perfect out there. I hope we can get to that, but it'll take some grand work on this council. So with that, I lend my support, and I will call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dermott is opposed. Motion carries. Can I ask for a second reading of bylaw number 9346?
So moved. Second.
I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dermott is opposed. Motion carries. Can I ask for a third reading of bylaw number 9346?
Third reading. Second.
Great, thank you for that. I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dermott is opposed. And finally, a motion that the development permit DPR 00582 be approved.
So moved.
There's a second there, and clerks will figure that out. And I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dermott is opposed. Motion carries. And so with that, we come to the end of our agenda, and I'll now look for a motion, if there's no other business, to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who came tonight, and to the applicants as well.